"Oh, shut your uneducated mouth, Marjorie. You bark like a dog that's never read a book, and every time you open your mouth, America loses a few brain cells. You're not a judge. You're barely a functioning member of Congress. And quite frankly, the only thing you've ever murdered is logic and decency." In a jaw-dropping moment that sent shockwaves through both mainstream media and social platforms, Representative Jasmine Crockett delivered an impassioned and unflinching takedown of Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's latest inflammatory outburst on live television. The confrontation erupted during a nationally televised political segment that aimed to discuss public health measures and leadership accountability during the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a debate on public health spiraled into chaos when Greene launched her baseless tirade, but Crockett responded with sharp logic, emotional clarity, and undeniable truth, leaving Greene visibly rattled and sparking widespread praise from the public and media alike. As Greene rattled off unfounded accusations, referencing cherry-picked statistics and conspiratorial interpretations of the pandemic's impact, she framed Democratic leadership as tyrannical and malicious. She implied that lockdowns were part of a sinister plot to control the population and that the Democratic governors responsible should face criminal consequences. Her language was not only reckless but deeply offensive to the millions of Americans who had lost loved ones to COVID-19, many of whom had looked to their leaders for guidance and reassurance during the darkest days of the health crisis. Greene's words also dismissed the sacrifices of frontline healthcare workers, scientists, and essential employees who put their lives on the line every day. Her speech wasn't merely political theater, it was a dangerous rewriting of history designed to manipulate public perception and shift blame away from those who had downplayed the virus, ignored expert advice, and ridiculed safety protocols. Jasmine Crockett, seated just feet away from Greene, initially allowed her to finish speaking without interruption, but her posture, facial expression, and growing intensity suggested that something powerful was brewing within her. When it was finally her turn to respond, Crockett wasted no time cutting straight to the heart of the matter. She began by calling out the grotesque misuse of the word murder, explaining that to use such a word in the context of public health leadership during a global pandemic was not only irresponsible but dehumanizing. Crockett emphasized that leaders were faced with unprecedented choices and that many Democratic governors had to make life-and-death decisions every single day with limited information and relentless pressure. "You think murder is the right word?" she asked Greene directly. "Then you clearly don't know what murder is. You clearly don't understand the weight of what real leaders were forced to do." The tone of the room shifted dramatically. No longer was this a shouting match. It had become a sobering moment of clarity. Crockett spoke about the very real pain her constituents endured, the parents who buried their children, the elderly who died alone in nursing homes, and the small business owners who faced agonizing choices about closing shop. She reminded viewers that Democratic governors were not acting alone, they were guided by scientists, medical professionals, and health organizations around the world who were grappling with the same questions and uncertainties. She asked, "Were those doctors murderers too? Was every nurse trying to save a life complicit in some grand criminal conspiracy? Or is it just easier for you to call people names than to admit that real leadership sometimes involves painful decisions?" Greene, who often thrives on confrontation, seemed taken aback by the sheer force of Crockett's words. There was a noticeable hesitation in her body language, as if even she had not anticipated such a powerful backlash. But Crockett was just getting started. She pulled out statistics that compared the COVID death rates across red and blue states. She showed that in states like Florida and Texas, which resisted mask mandates and rushed to reopen, the death toll had surged dramatically during later waves of the pandemic. In contrast, states like California and Washington, which implemented more aggressive public health measures, had better outcomes overall. Crockett explained these weren't opinions or interpretations, they were facts backed by the CDC, Johns Hopkins University, and numerous other research bodies that had studied the crisis extensively. Then came one of the most impactful moments of the broadcast. Crockett looked directly into the camera and addressed the American people. "I'm not here to defend every decision made by every Democrat," she said, "but I will defend truth. And the truth is, no one had a perfect playbook. We were in uncharted waters, and when leaders acted to save lives, when they made the hard calls that some Republicans refused to make, they did so not to control the people but to protect them." She paused, letting the words sink in. Calling them murderers is not just a lie, it's an insult to the thousands of people who were saved because those leaders cared enough to act. At this point, the live chat for the broadcast was exploding with reactions. People from across the country were praising Crockett's poise, calling her a voice of reason in a sea of political chaos. Some said they were brought to tears by her words, especially those who had lost loved ones during the pandemic. Others shared their own stories of surviving COVID, crediting local leadership for enforcing mask mandates or closing schools to stop the spread. The impact of Crockett's words was visceral and immediate. But Crockett wasn't finished. She turned her attention directly to Greene's own record, highlighting her constant attacks on medical experts and her relentless campaign of disinformation. She pointed out that Greene had supported policies that endangered lives, had mocked people for wearing masks, and had compared vaccine requirements to the Holocaust, a comparison so deeply offensive that it drew bipartisan condemnation. "You don't get to rewrite history," Crockett said. "You don't get to pretend you were on the side of the people when you were out there encouraging them to ignore science and put themselves at risk." Crockett then drew a powerful contrast between performative outrage and real leadership. She said that real leadership doesn't involve screaming the loudest or hurling the harshest insults, it means taking responsibility, facing criticism, and making decisions that may be unpopular but are necessary. She spoke of Democratic governors who stood up to angry crowds, who communicated daily with the public, who coordinated with health departments and hospitals to manage the unfolding crisis. Were there mistakes? She asked. Of course, but mistakes are not murder. Mistakes are human. What's inhuman is accusing those who tried to protect us of being killers just to score political points. The reaction from Greene was unusually muted. For once, she seemed unsure of how to respond. Perhaps she realized, even if only briefly, that she had gone too far. Or perhaps she understood that she had met her match in someone who wouldn't back down and wouldn't let her dominate the conversation with falsehoods and inflammatory rhetoric. Whatever the reason, the segment ended with Greene visibly frustrated, while Crockett remained calm, resolute, and clearly in command of the moment. The fallout from the exchange was swift and significant. News outlets from CNN to MSNBC covered the confrontation extensively, with commentators praising Crockett for standing up to Greene and calling out the dangerous rhetoric. Editorials emphasized the need for honesty and integrity in political discourse, especially when addressing national tragedies like the COVID-19 pandemic. Crockett's performance was hailed as a turning point, a rare moment where truth pierced through the noise and someone had the courage to call out lies for what they were. Meanwhile, Greene faced renewed scrutiny. Even some members of her own party privately expressed concern over her language, noting that such statements do more harm than good. Greene, predictably, doubled down in the days that followed, issuing a series of social media posts claiming that she was being attacked for speaking the truth. But the damage was done. The narrative had already shifted. Crockett had reframed the conversation, and the public had seen the difference between baseless blame and principled defense. In the weeks that followed, Crockett continued to build on the momentum. She appeared on several major news programs, where she elaborated on the points she made during the broadcast. She emphasized that her goal was not to defend political parties blindly but to ensure that public officials are held to standards of truth, compassion, and responsibility. Her message resonated widely, particularly among younger voters and those disillusioned by the growing toxicity in political discourse. In town halls, constituents expressed gratitude for her courage. Online, thousands shared clips of her speech, calling her a beacon of clarity and justice in an otherwise murky landscape. This moment also served as a powerful reminder of the importance of language in leadership. When someone like Greene uses words like murder inappropriately, it doesn't just tarnish reputations, it can incite violence, sow mistrust, and erode the very foundations of civil society. Crockett's pushback wasn't just about defending governors, it was about defending truth itself. She understood that letting such language go unchecked could normalize a level of discourse that is not only dangerous but un-American. Perhaps most importantly, Crockett's response reaffirmed the value of public service rooted in empathy and evidence. In an age where sensationalism often overshadows substance, she demonstrated that facts still matter and that integrity still has a place in politics. She reminded Americans that we don't have to accept cruelty or dishonesty as the norm. We can, and must, demand better from those who claim to represent us. In retrospect, this wasn't just a viral moment or a trending hashtag. It was a defining clash between two visions of American leadership. On one side, a figure who thrives on division and conspiracy, willing to say anything for attention. On the other, a rising leader determined to bring honor back to the process, even if it means standing alone. Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend Democratic governors that day, she defended every American who believes that public service should be about more than theater. She defended the truth. If you believe in the power of truth over noise, and if you want to see more leaders like Jasmine Crockett who refuse to let lies go unchallenged, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment where courage and integrity take center stage. Together, we can build a future where facts matter and leadership means something again.